No secretary could survive even a week working for him. His sharp tongue and impossible standards left assistants fleeing in tears. But when a clumsy coffee shop girl arrived, talking to inanimate objects and breaking every corporate rule, something shifted. What she didn't know was that her honesty would save them both and change everything forever. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Sterling Global was silent except for the sound of Julian Vance's wheelchair rolling across the marble floor. His assistant, a nervous man named Marcus, stood frozen near the door, clutching a tablet against his chest like a shield. "You're late," Julian said. His voice was cold, sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus checked his watch. "Sir, the meeting was scheduled for 3 o'clock. It's 2:58. "I said 3 o'clock. That means you should be here at 2:45 with everything prepared, not stumbling in at 2:58 like you just woke up from a nap." "But sir, I've been here since 2:30. I was just—" "You're fired." Marcus's face went white. "What? Mr. Vance, please, I have a family. I just started this job 3 days ago." Julian turned his wheelchair to face the window, looking out at the city below. "Then you should have been more careful. Security will escort you out. Leave your badge on the desk." The door burst open, and a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a designer suit walked in. Beatrice Sterling, Julian's godmother and the only person in the world who wasn't afraid of him. "Julian Alexander Vance," she said, using his full name like a weapon. "That's the 4th assistant this week. Then hire someone competent." "I hired Marcus myself. He has a master's degree from Harvard and 10 years of experience." "Then he should have known better." Beatrice grabbed the handles of his wheelchair and spun him around. "Get your coat. We're leaving." "I have work." "You have an attitude problem, and I'm fixing it right now." 20 minutes later, Julian found himself in a small coffee shop 3 blocks from Sterling Global. He hated it immediately. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow. There were plants everywhere, and worst of all, it was crowded with normal people living normal lives. "Why are we here?" Julian demanded. "Because you've forgotten what the real world looks like," Beatrice said. She sat down at a table near the window. "You sit in that tower all day, firing people and barking orders. You've become a tyrant." "I'm efficient." "You're miserable, and you're making everyone around you miserable too." Julian opened his mouth to argue, but then he heard it. A voice from behind the counter, talking rapidly to no one in particular. "Okay, Mr. Espresso Machine, I know you're having a bad day, but so am I, and we need to work together here. I promised Mrs. Chen her latte 15 minutes ago and she's giving me that look. You know the look. The one that says she's going to leave a bad review and tell all her friends." Julian turned his chair slightly to see who was talking. A young woman with curly brown hair tied up in a messy bun stood behind the counter, completely focused on the espresso machine. She wore a green apron covered in coffee stains, and her name tag said Maya. "Come on," Maya whispered to the machine. "Just one good shot. That's all I'm asking. Just one tiny, perfect shot of espresso and I'll clean you extra good tonight. I'll even use that special cleaner you like." The machine made a horrible grinding noise, and then spurted coffee all over Maya's apron. "Oh no," Maya said. She grabbed a towel and started dabbing at the mess. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Chen. The machine is being stubborn today. Would you like a regular coffee instead, on the house, with a cookie? Actually, take 2 cookies. Take the whole box. I'm really sorry." Beatrice was smiling now, watching Maya with interest. "Now that," she said quietly, "is someone real." Maya finished cleaning up the spill and started making a fresh drink. This time, everything worked perfectly. She handed the cup to Mrs. Chen with a relieved smile. "There you go. Thank you so much for being patient. You're my favorite customer. Don't tell the others." Mrs. Chen laughed and left with her coffee. Maya leaned against the counter and let out a long breath. Beatrice stood up. "Stay here," she told Julian. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done weeks ago." Beatrice walked to the counter. Maya looked up with a tired smile. "Hi, what can I get for you?" "I need to ask you something," Beatrice said. "Do you like working here?" Maya blinked. Yes, the people are nice. The coffee is good. The machine hates me, but we're working on our relationship." "How would you like a different job?" "Excuse me. I'm the CFO of Sterling Global. We need an executive assistant for our CEO. The pay is triple what you're making here. Full benefits, your own office." Maya laughed. Then she realized Beatrice wasn't joking. "Wait, you're serious?" "Completely serious. But I don't have any experience in that kind of job. I studied art history in college. I work in a coffee shop. I can barely work our register without hitting the wrong button." "That's exactly why I want you," Beatrice said. "Can you start Monday?" I guess. Should I send you my resume or?" "Just show up at Sterling Global at 8 in the morning. Ask for Julian Vance's office, 42nd floor." Beatrice walked back to Julian, who was staring at her like she'd lost her mind. "What did you just do?" he asked. "I hired your new assistant." "The girl who was talking to the coffee machine. Her name is Maya, and she's perfect." "Perfect for what?" "Getting fired on her first day." "Perfect for reminding you that people are human beings, not machines. Now let's go. You have a lot of apologizing to do before Monday." Monday morning arrived like a storm. Julian sat at his desk, reviewing contracts and ignoring the clock. At exactly 8:15, there was a knock on his door. "Come in," he said without looking up. The door opened and someone walked in wearing shoes that squeaked with every step. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Julian looked up. Maya stood in the doorway wearing a dress that was slightly too big and carrying a bag that looked like it was about to explode. Her hair was still in a messy bun, and she had a nervous smile on her face. "Hi," she said. "I'm Maya. I'm your new assistant. These shoes are new, and I think they hate me as much as that espresso machine did. Should I take them off? Is that weird? I brought extra shoes just in case, but they're also squeaky because apparently I only own squeaky shoes." Julian stared at her. "You're late." Maya checked her phone. "It's 8:15. Beatrice said 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock means 7:45. But 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock. That's how time works." No one had contradicted Julian in 5 years. He didn't know whether to fire her immediately or keep watching this disaster unfold. "Sit down," he said finally. Maya sat in the chair across from his desk. The chair made a weird noise and she jumped. "Sorry, that was the chair, not me. Although I did have beans for breakfast, so it could have been me. But it wasn't. It was definitely the chair." "Stop talking." Maya pressed her lips together. "Your job is simple," Julian continued. "You manage my schedule, you answer my emails, you attend meetings and take notes. You do exactly what I tell you when I tell you with no mistakes. Can you do that?" Maya nodded. "Use words." "Yes, sir, Mr. Vance, sir. Do I call you Julian, or Mr. Vance, or boss? I had a boss once who wanted us to call him captain, but he wasn't actually a captain of anything, so it was weird." Julian rubbed his temples. This was going to be a very long week. The first few days were a complete disaster. Maya got lost in the building 4 times. She accidentally sent an email meant for Julian to the entire company. She spilled coffee on 3 different people. Her shoes squeaked everywhere she went. But the real disaster happened on Thursday during a design meeting. Julian was reviewing a new product, a sleek black device that was supposed to revolutionize personal technology. The executives sat around the conference table, all of them nodding and smiling. "Thoughts?" Julian asked. "Brilliant," said David, the head of marketing. "Revolutionary," said James, the design lead. It's going to change everything, said Paul from finance. Julian turned to Maya, who was sitting in the corner with her notepad. And you? Maya looked up surprised. Me. Yes, you. What do you think? Oh, do you really want to know? I asked, didn't I? Maya bit her lip. It looks like a millionaire penguin in a tuxedo. The room went completely silent. David's mouth fell open. James turned red. Paul looked like he was about to faint. Julian stared at the device. Then he looked at Maya, then back at the device. And then, for the first time in 3 years, he laughed. It wasn't a big laugh, just a short, surprised sound that escaped before he could stop it, but everyone in the room heard it. A millionaire penguin, Julian repeated. He was almost smiling. You know what? She's right. It does look like a penguin. James, go back to the design team. Make it less penguin-like. James nodded quickly and left the room. The other executives followed, whispering to each other in confusion. Maya stayed in her seat looking nervous. Should I pack my things? Why would you pack your things? Because I just insulted your product in front of everyone. You told me the truth. Everyone else lied to make me happy. Which do you think is more valuable? Maya thought about it. The truth. Correct. Now come on. We have another meeting in 10 minutes and I need someone to tell me if my tie looks stupid. Your tie looks fine, but your attitude could use some work. Julian turned his wheelchair to face her. Excuse me. Nothing, I didn't say anything. The tie is great, very tie-like. For the first time in years, Julian felt something he'd almost forgotten. He felt interested in what happened next. The real turning point came 2 weeks later during a critical negotiation with international investors from Tokyo. Julian needed their money to expand Sterling Global into Asian markets. The investors were formal, precise, and very traditional. Maya was carrying a tray of coffee into the conference room when her squeaky shoe caught on the edge of an antique rug that was worth more than most people's houses. She went flying forward. The tray went up in the air, and coffee rained down like a very expensive, very hot storm. The coffee hit the rug, the priceless, irreplaceable antique rug. Everyone froze. The investors stared at the growing brown stain. David looked like he was about to cry. Julian's face went completely blank. Maya stood up slowly. She looked at the rug, then at the investors, then at Julian. Well, she said, I guess this rug is now an abstract art piece. And abstract art is very valuable, so technically I just increased its worth. You're welcome. No one spoke. Then one of the investors, an older man named Mr. Tanaka, started to chuckle. Then he laughed. Then all the investors were laughing. You are very honest, Mr. Tanaka said. In Japan, we value honesty very much. Most Americans try too hard to be perfect, but you show us your mistakes and make jokes. This is good. This is real. He turned to Julian. Mr. Vance, we will invest in your company. Not because of your numbers or your presentations, but because you hire people like her, people who are real. That means you are real too. They signed the deal that afternoon. After the investors left, Julian found Maya in her small office, staring at the wall. You're not fired, he said. I ruined a priceless rug. You closed a $100 million deal. By accident. Does it matter? Maya turned to look at him. Why aren't you angry? Julian was quiet for a moment. Because you did something I forgot how to do. You were yourself. And somehow that worked better than all my careful planning. So I can keep my squeaky shoes. Don't push your luck. But he was almost smiling when he said it. That night, Maya left her jacket in the office and went back to get it around 9 o'clock. The building was mostly empty. Just security guards and a few workaholics still at their desks. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor and walked past Julian's office toward her small workspace. That's when she heard it, a sound that didn't fit in the corporate silence, A grunt of pain followed by heavy breathing. Maya followed the sound down a hallway she'd never noticed before. At the end was a door with frosted glass. Light leaked out from underneath. She pushed the door open carefully. Inside was a private gym, and in the middle of the gym between two parallel bars was Julian. He wasn't in his wheelchair. He was standing barely, his hands gripping the bars so hard his knuckles were white. His legs were shaking. Sweat dripped down his face. "Come on," he whispered to himself. "Just one more step, just one." He lifted his right foot. It moved forward maybe 2 inches before his leg buckled. He caught himself on the bars, breathing hard. "Pathetic," he said quietly. "Absolutely pathetic." Maya stepped into the room. "I don't think it's pathetic." Julian's head snapped up. His face went through several emotions at once: surprise, embarrassment, anger. "Get out," he said. "No. This is private. You're not supposed to see this." "See what? You working harder than anyone I've ever met." "I can barely move 3 feet. Do you know how long I've been doing this? 6 months. 6 months of this torture, and I can take maybe 5 steps before I collapse. That's pathetic." Maya walked closer. "Have you ever seen a movie?" Julian stared at her. "What?" "A movie. You know, with heroes and explosions and stuff. The hero always has a training montage, right? And it's always hard. They always fall down and get back up and fall down again. That's literally the most inspiring part of every movie ever made. So right now, you're in your training montage, and training montages are never pathetic. They're the most important part. This isn't a movie. So what? The same rules apply. You're fighting, you're not giving up. That's literally the opposite of pathetic." Julian looked down at his shaking legs. "Why are you being nice to me? I'm terrible to you. I'm terrible to everyone." "Because underneath all that terribleness, you're a person who comes to an empty gym at night and fights to take 5 steps that no one will ever see. That's not terrible. That's actually pretty amazing." For a long moment, Julian just stood there between the bars. Then he said very quietly, "Will you stay?" "What?" "While I do this, will you stay in the room? I don't want to be alone." Maya pulled up a chair and sat down. "I'll stay as long as you need." From that night on, Maya came to the gym 3 times a week. She sat in her chair and talked to Julian while he worked through his physical therapy. She told him stories about her childhood, about her dreams of being an artist, about the time she accidentally adopted 17 stray cats because she felt bad for them. And slowly, one painful step at a time, Julian got stronger. 3 months into Maya's time at Sterling Global, the company held its annual charity gala. It was the biggest social event of the year, with investors, politicians, and celebrities all gathering in a massive ballroom to celebrate and donate money to various causes. Julian hated it, but he had to attend. He had to give a speech. Maya helped him get ready that evening, adjusting his tie and making sure his wheelchair was polished to perfection. "You're going to be great," she said. "I hate these events." "I know, but think of it this way. You only have to smile for 3 hours and then you can go back to being grumpy." "I'm not grumpy." "You're so grumpy. You're like a grumpy cat that became a human, a very rich, very grumpy human." Julian almost smiled. "Are you coming tonight?" "I'm your assistant. Where you go, I go. Even to fancy parties where I'll probably spill something on someone important." "Try not to." "No promises." The gala was beautiful. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Everyone wore expensive clothes and fake smiles. Julian moved through the crowd in his wheelchair, shaking hands and making small talk that he hated. Maya stayed close, carrying his notes for his speech. She wore a simple blue dress and her hair was actually brushed for once. Several people complimented her, which made her blush every time. What they didn't know was that Victoria Thorne was watching from across the room. Victoria was Sterling Global's former head of operations. She'd been fired 6 months ago for embezzling funds, but she'd managed to keep it quiet enough that people still invited her to events like this. She hated Julian for exposing her, and tonight she was going to make him pay. When it was time for Julian's speech, he rolled up to the stage. There was a special ramp for his wheelchair and a microphone stand adjusted to his height. He'd given this speech a dozen times before. He had it memorized. He pressed the button on the microphone. Nothing happened. He tried again, still nothing. The crowd started to murmur. Julian felt sweat forming on his forehead. He tried a third time, tapping the microphone. Dead silence. Someone in the crowd whispered loudly, "He can't even work a microphone." Another voice, "Maybe he needs help." Julian's hands clenched on his wheelchair. This was his nightmare, looking weak in front of everyone who mattered. Then Maya was running onto the stage, her shoes squeaking with every step. She grabbed the microphone and spoke into it loudly. "Hi everyone. So the microphone is broken, which is annoying but not the end of the world. But you know what? I'm going to tell you what Julian would say because I've heard him practice this speech about 50 times and I have it memorized. Ready? Here goes." She cleared her throat and her voice changed, becoming more formal. Julian would tell you that Sterling Global donated $15 million to charity this year. He'd give you a bunch of statistics about how that money helped build schools and hospitals and clean water systems. He'd thank you all for coming and ask you to donate too. Maya's voice softened. But here's what Julian wouldn't tell you, because he never talks about himself. He wouldn't tell you that he personally mentors 12 young entrepreneurs every month, giving them advice and connections to help their businesses succeed. He wouldn't tell you that he quietly paid off the medical debts of 23 Sterling Global employees this year when he found out they were struggling. The crowd was completely silent now, listening. He wouldn't tell you that 6 months ago he couldn't stand up without help, and now he can take 40 steps between parallel bars in his private gym. He wouldn't tell you that he works harder than any person I've ever met, and that despite everything life has thrown at him, he's never once used his disability as an excuse. Maya's eyes were bright with tears. Julian Vance is the strongest person I know, not because he's rich or successful, but because he refuses to give up, ever, on anything. And if that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. The room erupted in applause. People stood up, clapping and wiping their own tears. Julian sat frozen on the stage, staring at Maya. She handed him a working microphone. "They fixed it," she whispered. "Your turn." Julian took the microphone. His voice was rough when he spoke. "Thank you, Maya, for everything." The gala raised twice as much money as expected that night, but Victoria Thorne wasn't finished. She waited until the next morning to make her move. Victoria sat across from Maya in a small cafe 3 blocks from Sterling Global. Maya had been surprised when Victoria called, saying she needed to talk about something important regarding Julian. Now, sitting in the uncomfortable silence, Maya felt her stomach twist with anxiety. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said, her voice soft and concerned. "And I'm only doing this because I care about Julian, even though he fired me." Maya leaned forward. "What is it?" "You're hurting him, Maya. You don't see it, but everyone else does." "What? I would never hurt Julian." Victoria pulled out her phone and showed Maya a series of photos. Maya at the gala with coffee stains on her dress. Maya tripping in the hallway while carrying documents. Maya's squeaky shoes visible in every picture. "Do you see this?" Victoria asked. "This is what people see when they look at Sterling Global now. They see Julian Vance, brilliant CEO, stuck with a clumsy assistant who can't even walk across a room without causing a scene. Do you know what they're saying? They're saying he's lost his edge, that he's gone soft, that he's letting his disability affect his judgment." Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. "That's not true." "Isn't it? Why else would he keep you around? You spilled coffee on a priceless rug during the biggest negotiation of the year. You called his product a penguin in front of his entire design team. You make a spectacle of yourself at every single event. But Julian said those things were good. He said I helped. Of course he said that. He feels sorry for you. You remind him of himself, struggling and helpless. But Maya, you're not helping him. You're holding him back. Every mistake you make reflects on him. Every time you stumble, people see it as his failure for hearing you. Victoria reached across the table and took Maya's hand. I know you care about him. I can see it. So if you really care, you'll do what's best for him. You'll leave before you damage his reputation any further. Maya pulled her hand away. Why are you telling me this? Because someone has to. Look, I have connections at a great little art gallery downtown. They're looking for someone to help curate exhibits. It's perfect for you. Art history degree, creative mind. You'd be amazing at it. And Julian could hire someone who actually knows how to be an executive assistant. I need to think about it. Of course, but Maya, don't think too long. Every day you stay is another day of people whispering about Julian behind his back. Maya left the cafe feeling like she'd been punched in the stomach. She went back to Sterling Global and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Coffee stains on her sleeve, her hair already falling out of its bun. Mascara smudged under one eye. Victoria was right, she was a mess, and Julian deserved better. That evening, Maya wrote a resignation letter. Her hands shook as she typed the words. She printed it out, put it in an envelope, and left it on Julian's desk after he'd gone to his physical therapy session. Then she packed her few belongings from her small office, took one last look at the 42nd floor, and left. She didn't say goodbye. She couldn't. If she saw Julian, she'd break down crying and she wouldn't be able to leave. And leaving was the right thing to do, for him. Maya went back to her hometown, a small place called Riverside 3 hours outside the city. She moved back into her childhood bedroom at her parents' house. She got her old job back at the coffee shop, the one with the stubborn espresso machine. Every day felt gray. She made coffee, she smiled at customers, she went home. She didn't talk to the espresso machine anymore. She didn't talk much at all. Her mom, Rita, watched her daughter move through the house like a ghost. What happened in the city? She asked one evening over dinner. Nothing, Mom. The job just wasn't right for me. You called me every day when you worked there. You were happy. You talked about Julian constantly. I was wrong. I didn't fit in that world. Or someone told you that you didn't fit. Maya looked up sharply. What? Rita sat down next to her daughter. Maya, sweetheart, you've always been different. When you were little, you talked to trees. You made friends with every animal you saw. You see the world in colors that other people miss. That's not a weakness. That's your gift. My gift got in the way. I embarrassed someone I care about. Did he say that? He didn't have to. Then you're wrong, and you ran away before finding out the truth. Back in the city, Julian sat in his office staring at Maya's resignation letter. He'd read it 20 times and it still didn't make sense. Dear Julian, it said, thank you for the opportunity to work at Sterling Global. However, I've realized that I'm not the right fit for this position. You deserve an assistant who can represent your company professionally, and that's not me. I'm sorry for any embarrassment I've caused. Best wishes, Maya. Embarrassment? What embarrassment? Julian called Beatrice into his office. Did you know about this? Beatrice read the letter, her face darkening. No, but this doesn't sound like Maya. This sounds like someone got into her head. Who would do that? Someone who wants to hurt you. Someone who knows that Maya is important to you. Julian's eyes narrowed. Victoria. She was at the gala. I saw her talking to several people, spreading rumors. I wouldn't put it past her to go after Maya directly. Julian grabbed his phone and called Maya. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again, same result. He sent a text, no response. Where does she live? He asked. I have her address on file, but Julian, she clearly doesn't want to be contacted. I don't care what she thinks she wants. Someone lied to her and I'm going to fix it. You're going to chase after her. Yes. Beatrice smiled. It's about time you admitted how you feel. Julian paused. What? Oh, please. You light up every time she walks into a room. You laugh at her jokes. You let her see you at your most vulnerable. You're in love with her, Julian. Everyone can see it except apparently you and her. That's not, I'm her boss. It would be inappropriate. She doesn't work for you anymore. So what's your excuse now? Julian had no answer for that. 2 hours later, Julian was in his car with his driver, Mark, heading toward Riverside. He'd found out Maya's hometown from her employment records. It was a small place. How hard could it be to find her? Pretty hard, actually. Riverside had 3 coffee shops, 2 diners, and a main street that was only 4 blocks long. Julian started at the first coffee shop. No Maya. The second coffee shop. No Maya. At the third coffee shop, a small place called Riverside Roasters, Julian rolled through the door and saw her. Maya stood behind the counter making a latte. She looked tired. Sad, like all the light had gone out of her. Maya, Julian said. She looked up and dropped the cup she was holding. It shattered on the floor. Julian, what are you doing here? We need to talk. I can't, I'm working. The owner of the shop, a kind-looking woman named Rose, stepped forward. Take a break, Maya. I've got the counter. Maya had no choice. She came out from behind the counter and sat at a table in the corner. Julian rolled his chair across from her. Why did you leave? He asked. You read my letter. I read words on a page that didn't sound like you. Tell me the real reason. Maya looked down at her hands. I don't fit in your world, Julian. I'm clumsy and weird and I say the wrong things. I embarrass you. Who told you that? Does it matter? Victoria talked to you, didn't she? Maya's silence was answer enough. Julian leaned forward. Everything she told you was a lie, Maya. You didn't embarrass me. You saved me. Before you came into my life, I was angry all the time. I hated myself. I hated my wheelchair. I hated everyone around me for seeing me as weak. Do you know what you did? You saw past all of that. You saw me. But I spilled coffee on that rug. I called your product a penguin. I'm a disaster. You closed $100 million deal. You made me redesign a product that actually needed to be redesigned. You're not a disaster, Maya. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Tears were streaming down Maya's face now. Then, why does Victoria think I'm hurting you? Because she's angry and bitter, and she wants to hurt me by taking away the one person who makes me happy. Don't let her win. I don't know if I can come back. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that world. Julian reached across the table and took her hand. Then I'll be strong enough for both of us, just like you were strong enough for me when I couldn't walk. Remember the gym. Remember how you sat there night after night while I took 5 pathetic steps. You never gave up on me, so I'm not giving up on you. Maya was crying so hard she could barely breathe. I missed you so much. I missed you too, every single day. The office is too quiet without your squeaky shoes. The meetings are boring without your weird observations. I need you, Maya, not as my assistant, as my partner, as the person who makes me want to be better. Partner. Julian took a deep breath. Come back to the city with me, not to work for me, to be with me. I know it's complicated. I know I'm difficult and grumpy and I live in a wheelchair. But I love you, Maya. I think I've loved you since the day you compared my product to a millionaire penguin. Maya laughed through her tears. You love me. Completely, terrifyingly, in a way I didn't think was possible anymore. I love you too. I've loved you since I saw you in that gym, fighting so hard for every single step. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Julian smiled, a real genuine smile that transformed his entire face. So is that a yes? On one condition. Anything. I keep my squeaky shoes. Deal. They sat there in the coffee shop, holding hands across the table while Rose pretended not to cry behind the counter. Outside, the sun was setting over Riverside, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. But they weren't done yet. Julian had one more surprise planned. 3 months later, Sterling Global held its annual conference. The ballroom was packed with employees, investors, and media. Everyone was waiting for Julian's keynote speech about the company's future. Backstage, Maya adjusted Julian's tie for the 100th time. She was nervous. Julian had been secretive about this speech for weeks, refusing to tell her what he was planning. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Almost. There's something I need to tell you first." "Now, Julian, you go on in 2 minutes." "I fired Victoria." "I know, you told me." "I also started something new, a program for the company, but I wanted to surprise you with it." "What kind of program?" Julian smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." The lights dimmed in the ballroom. The crowd went silent. Music started playing, building to a crescendo. And then Julian appeared on stage, but he wasn't in his wheelchair. He was walking, slowly and carefully, using a cane for support. Each step was deliberate, hard-won through months of painful physical therapy. The crowd gasped, then they erupted in applause. Julian made it to center stage and stood at the microphone. Maya watched from the wings, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," Julian said, his voice strong and clear. "I know many of you are surprised to see me standing here. 6 months ago, I couldn't take 5 steps without collapsing. Today, I walked across this entire stage. That's not because I'm special. It's because I had help. I had someone who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself." He looked directly at Maya in the wings. "But I'm not here to talk about my personal journey. I'm here to announce something that's going to change Sterling Global forever. We're launching a new initiative called the Vance Project. It's a global program focused on corporate inclusion, mental health support, and disability accommodation. We're going to prove that diverse companies with supported employees are stronger companies." The crowd applauded again. Julian waited for silence. "The Vance Project will provide funding for adaptive technology, mental health services, and inclusive workplace design. We'll partner with organizations around the world to help other companies do the same, because I've learned something important. Your struggles don't make you weak. They make you human, and humanity is our greatest strength." He paused and then said, "But I need a partner to help me run this program. Someone who understands that being different is valuable. Someone who sees the world in ways that others miss. Maya, can you come out here?" Maya froze. Everyone was looking at her. Julian was gesturing for her to come onto the stage. She walked out slowly, her squeaky shoes announcing every step. The crowd laughed, but it was warm laughter, affectionate. Julian took her hand when she reached him. "Maya, you taught me that cracks are where the light gets in. You showed me that perfection is boring and that mistakes can lead to miracles. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved." He got down on one knee. It took him a long time and his cane clattered to the floor, but he did it. The entire ballroom held its breath. "I don't have a ring because I wanted to pick it out with you, but I do have a question. Maya, will you marry me?" Maya was crying so hard she could barely see. "You're proposing in front of 1,000 people. I wanted everyone to know that I found the most amazing woman in the world and I'm never letting her go. So what do you say?" "Yes, obviously yes. You ridiculous. Wonderful dramatic man. Yes." The crowd exploded in applause and cheers. Julian stood up with Maya's help and kissed her right there on stage. Later that night, after the conference ended and the crowds dispersed, Julian and Maya sat on the balcony of his penthouse apartment, looking out at the city lights. "I can't believe you proposed in front of everyone," Maya said. "I wanted it to be memorable." Mission accomplished. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Maya asked, "What happens now?" "Now we build something together. The Vance project, a life, a future, whatever we want." "What if I mess it up? What if I'm not good enough to run a global initiative?" Julian took her hand. "Remember what you told me in the gym? You said I was in my training montage. Well, guess what? We're both in training montages now. We'll fall down, we'll make mistakes, but we'll get back up together." "Together," Maya repeated. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." 6 months later, the Vance project launched in 12 countries. Maya became its director, bringing her unique perspective to every decision. She hired people who'd been overlooked by other companies. She created programs that actually helped instead of just looking good on paper. She brought art and creativity into the corporate world. And she still wore her squeaky shoes, because some things were too perfect to change. Sterling Global transformed under their partnership. The company became known not just for its profits but for its humanity. Employees stayed longer. Productivity increased. Other companies started copying their model. But the best transformation was the one that happened between Julian and Maya. Julian learned to laugh again, to be vulnerable, to ask for help when he needed it. Maya learned that her quirks weren't flaws but gifts, that being different made her valuable, not less. They got married on a Tuesday afternoon in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Maya's shoes squeaked when she walked down the aisle. Julian stood waiting for her, using his cane but standing. When the officiant asked if they had vows, Julian went first. "Maya, you once told me that training montages are the most important part of every movie. You were right, but you know what's even better than a training montage? Having someone beside you during it. Someone who sees your struggles and doesn't turn away. Someone who makes you laugh when you want to give up. You're my partner, my light, my home. And I promise to be yours for the rest of my life." Maya wiped her tears and said, "Julian, you once asked me what I thought of your product and I said it looked like a millionaire penguin. That should have gotten me fired, but instead it changed my life. You taught me that honesty is more valuable than perfection. That vulnerability is strength. That love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. You're my best friend, my inspiration, my everything. And I promise to keep wearing squeaky shoes so you always know where I am." Everyone laughed through their tears. They kissed as husband and wife, and somewhere in the audience, Beatrice dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief and whispered to Rose, Maya's mother, "I knew they were perfect for each other the moment I saw her talking to that espresso machine." Rose laughed. "My daughter has always been special. She found someone who appreciates that. That's the real miracle." Years passed. The Vance project expanded to 40 countries. Julian continued his physical therapy and eventually could walk short distances without his cane, though he kept the wheelchair for longer trips. Maya published a book about bringing humanity into corporate culture. It became a bestseller. They had their struggles. Julian had bad days when his legs hurt too much to walk. Maya had days when the pressure of her job felt overwhelming, but they faced everything together, just like they'd promised. And every morning, Maya still wore her squeaky shoes, because they reminded both of them that perfection was overrated, that mistakes could lead to miracles, and that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. Like a billionaire in a wheelchair, meeting a clumsy barista who talked to coffee machines. Like finding love when you weren't looking for it. Like discovering that your cracks really were where the light got in. Sterling Global continued to thrive. The Vance Project helped thousands of people find meaningful work despite their disabilities or challenges. And Julian and Maya proved that two imperfect people could create something perfect together. Not perfect without flaws, but perfect because of them. The end of their story was really just the beginning of a life built on honesty, vulnerability, and love. The beginning of a partnership that changed not just a company, but an entire way of thinking about what it meant to be human in a corporate world. And it all started with squeaky shoes, a millionaire penguin, and a woman brave enough to be herself in a world that demanded perfection. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up exactly as you are. Messy, imperfect, and beautifully, wonderfully human. Thank you for watching. Would you take a chance on someone everyone else rejected? Have you ever met someone who changed your life by just being themselves? Drop a comment below with your location and tell us your story. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales. See you in the next one.